Today on Commander Replay, everyone's favorite flying spaghetti monster takes on an army of slivers. Can Emrakul the Promised End defeat Sliver Overlord, Endrek Sahr Master Breeder, and Sliver Hivelord? Find out next on Commander Replay. Hello everyone, welcome back to Commander Replay. Today, we are playing Emrakul the Promised End. Emrakul says, Emrakul the Promised End costs 1 less to cast for each card type among cards in your graveyard. When you cast Emrakul, you gain control of target opponent during that player's next turn. After that turn, that player takes an extra turn. And Emrakul also has Flying, Trample, and Protection from Instants. Let's take a look at our starting hand. We have 1 land, 2 lands. We have a Grim Monolith. I like this hand. We have a lot of acceleration. Yeah, we have a ton of acceleration in the hand. We're going to go ahead and keep. Opponents chit-chatting about their decks. Let's take a look at what we're facing. Sliver Overlord. 5 colors, 7/7. Pay 3, search your library for a Sliver card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, and you may pay 3, gain control of target Sliver. We have Endrek Sahr, Master Breeder. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create X/1/1 black Thrall tokens, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. When you control 7 or more Thralls, sacrifice Endrek Master Breeder. And Sliver Hivelord. Sliver creatures you control have indestructible. Sliver Hivelord player goes first, and they start with an expedition map. In the messages, opponents are chit-chatting quite a bit. We'll start with our Rogues passage. They started by saying that 2 Sliver decks is not great because they both power each other up, but one player said they're not actually playing Slivers. I'm going to guess that is the Sliver Overlord opponent. I have seen Sliver Overlord decks where they don't really play Slivers. They turn everything else into Slivers and try to steal everything. So I'm guessing that's what's going to happen here, but we'll see. So Godless Shrine for the Sliver Overlord and a Swamp for the Endrek Sahr opponent. I always wanted to build an Endrek Sahr deck. I actually have one about half built in paper, and I just haven't taken the time to actually finish building it. Opponent says they want to make an Eldrazi deck. Krosan Verge for our opponent. So opponent taps out, passes the turn. We draw a Wastes. So we will play the Wastes, play our Grim Monolith, and pass the turn. I really like this hand. We have a lot of ramp in our hand. We have the Grim Monolith, we have a Solemn Simulacrum, we have the Darksteel Ingot, and then we have the Crystal Ball so we can scry and make and smooth out our draws later on. So first Sliver coming into play, Sentinel Sliver. It's a 2/2, and Sliver creatures you control have Vigilance, so this does not give all Slivers Vigilance. So maybe the Sliver Overlord opponent is the one that's actually playing Slivers, and the Sliver Hivelord opponent is the one that is doing something else. Endrek Sahr plays the land, taps out, passes the turn. I really just want to build Endrek Sahr, Lord of the Pit, Minion of Leshrac style deck where you have to sacrifice creatures on your turn every turn or something really bad happens to you. It would basically be the EDH version of the very first black deck that I ever built around Revised Ice Age era where it was all about Breeding Pit, Lord of the Pit, and Minion of Leshrac. Opponent sacrifices their expedition map. That was my style of Magic back in the day, so it'd be fun to bring that back, especially with all the mana doubling that Mono Black has. Be able to very easily cast some of those bigger 7-drops. Vampiric Tutor for opponent. Opponent finds a Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth with the expedition map and drops it into play. So that'll be good for us if we find Eye of Ugin. Eye of Ugin does not produce mana, so if we do find ours for some reason, we'll be able to produce mana with it on top of the 2 cost reduction that it also provides. One of our opponents says, thank you for Urborg, they were needing some black mana. Oh, and that'd be the Endrek Sahr opponent, just joking around. So we draw an Inventor's Fair, and I believe we're going to play the Inventor's Fair right here. Yeah, Inventor's Fair comes into play untapped, so yeah, let's drop it down. Only problem with Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, on Magic Online, it makes everything very slow to tap. That is something that we'll have to keep an eye out for. So, potentially we have 4 mana right here. We could lay down the Solemn Simulacrum. Do I want to tap the Grim Monolith yet? I'm not sure. How much mana will we have total? We'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The Solemn Simulacrum would give us 8, and the Ghost Quarter would give us 9 on our next turn. But we have no cards in graveyard, so we still wouldn't be able to cast Emrakul. Yeah, since we're a couple turns away still, I'm going to play the Solemn Simulacrum right here and just get another land into play. We'll probably spend next turn untapping the Grim Monolith. Land for our opponent, and they cycle a Homing Sliver to find a Mana Weft Sliver. Blood Vassal. Oh, that's cool. Land for our opponent. So back to our turn. We get an Inventor's Fair trigger. We're going to auto-yield that trigger. We do have 3 artifacts in play, so we gain some life. We're up to 41. We draw a Nevinral's Disc. We'll hang on to that in case we need to wipe the board. That's one of those things I don't like playing early, because then people try to play around it and then the game just kind of stalls out because no one actually commits anything to the board. So first things first, I am going to untap our Grim Monolith. I want to have that mana available on our following turns because we should be getting close to Emrakul mana. And then I'm going to play this Lightning Greaves and put some Greaves on our Solemn Simulacrum. We'll keep the Solemn Simulacrum back on defense. It's not a great attacker. We'll draw the card if someone wants to attack into us. So we'll stay put and chip the turn. So right now we're doing what this deck is supposed to do, which is spend our early turns ramping like crazy. Mana Weft Sliver coming into play for the Sliver Overlord opponent. So opponent will be able to make some extra mana. They drop down a Windswept Heath. They sack the Windswept Heath. Gets a Tropical Island. And a Siphon Sliver coming into play. Creatures you control have lifelink. All of the Overlord's creatures have lifelink and vigilance, and the ability to tap for mana. Endrek Sahr coming into play. Land tax for the Sliver Hivelord opponent. So because we ramped with the Simulacrum, we'll probably be triggering their land tax for a couple turns. Mortify, targeting the Siphon Sliver. Not sure that's the one I would have targeted. I probably would have targeted the Mana Weft Sliver, honestly. So back to our turn. Inventor's Fair goes on the stack. We gain another life. Ooh, we draw a Divining Top. Let's check on our ability to cast Emrakul. So Emrakul still costs 13. We have no card types in our graveyard. We have a total of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana. So we're still a little ways away. And at this point, the other thing to consider is that I don't really know what our opponents have yet. So none of our opponents are in a position where taking control of one of their turns could really either hurt them or hurt one of our other opponents. So hanging back on the Emrakul is not the worst idea for now. What I do want to do is see if we can get a land into play this turn. So we'll start with our Crystal Ball. We have 2 wastes on top of our deck. I think we'll leave them both. We are looking to make land drops right now. Put on top, put on top. Player Divining Top. We'll use its ability. So we have 3 wastes on top of our deck. I don't know that we want all 3 of them, so we'll use the Crystal Ball next turn to remove one of those. So we'll drop the wastes into play. And again, no attacks. So we'll pass the turn. We're going to put a stop on our upkeep for our Crystal Ball. We could really use someone to attack into us so we can draw both our Divining Top and the land in the same turn. Also, that would give us 2 card types in the graveyard, artifact and creature. Mirari's Wake coming in for the Sliver Overlord opponent. Land for our opponent. Into play tapped. So Endrek Sahr plays an Abyssal Spectre. It's a 2/3 flying. Whenever it deals damage to a player, that player discards a card. And they get 4 1/1 Thrall tokens. Passes the turn. Land tax goes on the stack. So Abyssal Spectre gives us a reason to possibly steal Endrek Sahr's turn. It's because it gives us something we can do against one of our other opponents. Opponent searches up 2 lands, island and a mountain. Day of Judgment for the Sliver Hivelord opponent. So this is actually pretty good because this allows us to draw a card, which will get our Divining Top back and give us a land draw on our next turn. We gain a life off of Inventor's Fair. On our upkeep, we are going to use our Crystal Ball. So we have 2 wastes on top. I'm going to put 1 to the bottom and 1 on top. There were 3 at one point. Let's get our Divining Top back into play. Ooh, a Blinkmoth Urn, huh? Yeah, no one else has any artifacts. So if we get this Blinkmoth Urn into play, we're going to get a ton of mana. Let's put that back on top of our library. How much mana do we have left? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we have enough to cast it. So draw a card with Divining Top. And so Blinkmoth Urn says, at the beginning of each player's pre-combat main phase, if Blinkmoth Urn is untapped, that player gains 1 colorless for each artifact he or she controls. Being that we are a colorless deck and have a ton of artifacts, we will get lots of mana. No one else currently has any artifacts in play. Right now, this effect is one-sided. Sliver Overlord coming into play. It is an 8/8 off of the Mirari's Wake. Searches for a Sliver and goes for Gemhide Sliver. Gives all Slivers the ability to tap for mana. And Gemhide Sliver comes into play. Our next turn could potentially look something like this. We cast Emrakul, and then we could use the Inventor's Fair to search for our Erratic Portal and continually bounce Emrakul and recast, keep taking control of players' turns. Lost Hours. Target player reveals his hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player puts that card into his library 3rd from the top. Weird. Sliver Overlord now has Infect. That's not awesome. Land tax trigger goes on the stack. So what that means is that we'll want to cast Emrakul and use the Sliver Overlord to attack someone else because we don't want to get hit with all that Infect damage. I'm guessing that we can use the ability to search for some Slivers that give +1, +1, or +2, +2, and make the Sliver Overlord lethal. That was an interesting play by the Endrek Sahr opponent. Risky because the Sliver Overlord could just swing into the Endrek Sahr if they wanted to. I don't know that they would do that, but they could. Okay, Dreadbore on the Sliver Overlord. That makes sense. Realistically, I was probably going to kill the Sliver Hivelord that turn, so that seems fair. Now I think we steal the Sliver Hivelord opponent's turn because they just use the Diabolic Tutor. I really don't know what this deck is trying to do. It's not a Sliver deck. In the group chat, opponent said that they only use their commander as a blocker, so I assume it's some sort of combo deck, and we will want to disrupt that as fast as possible. So our upkeep, we have 2 card types in our graveyard. We will get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana off of Blinkmoth Urn. Okay, we have enough to use our Crystal Ball right here. Divining Top and a Terramorphic Expanse. I'm going to keep the Terramorphic Expanse on top along with the Divining Top. We'll draw the Divining Top first. But the Terramorphic Expanse, we can sacrifice and that'll give us a land in our graveyard. So I guess we could also get the same thing done with the Inventor's Fair. So depending if we Inventor's Fair this turn, that'll also give us a land in our graveyard plus reshuffle our library. So we get 5 mana off of the Blinkmoth Urn. We're going to use that to cast our Emrakul. Also, we have Lightning Greaves in play, so we can just go into someone for a ton of damage too. Whew, Emrakul's a lot of mana. So we're going to steal the Sliver Hivelord's turn. Commander! We do not have enough mana to use the Inventor's Fair this turn, so we'll just recast our Divining Top. Equip the Emrakul with the boots. I assume that the mono black player will have the most ways to interact with Emrakul, so we're going to tag them for a bunch of damage. Emrakul hit the Endrek Sahr opponent for 13. This puts them on the basically board sweep or bust plan. So pass the turn. So Sliver Overlord coming back into play. Searches for a Sliver. Heart Sliver. All Slivers have haste. Originally from Tempest. So Heart Sliver coming into play. All Slivers have haste. Telekinetic Sliver. All Slivers have tap target permanent. It's a really good thing we have Lightning Greaves on our Emrakul. All Slivers have Provoke. Whenever a Sliver attacks, its controller may have target creature defending player controls untap and block it if able. Pretty nasty. If the Sliver Hivelord has a board sweep, I might play it because the Sliver Overlord opponent just basically emptied their hand and played a whole bunch of Slivers, a whole bunch of really nastiness. What just happened? Oh, so our opponent cast Dark Deal. We ended up wheeling our... Ew. So the Sliver Hivelord had a whole lot of nothing in their hand. That's not great. Well, I guess they probably had something and probably got... Yeah, okay. They had a whole bunch of stuff, and then they got wheeled out with the Dark Deal. Ugh, wheel effects. So I'm going to skip their land tax ability. Reset suggests combo to me. I'm just going to pass their turn. I don't want to play a land. I can't cast the reset. That has to be cast during an opponent's turn. So yeah, I'm just going to pass their turn. We have a new enemy target on board, which would be the Sliver Overlord opponent, since no one seems to have any answers for that currently. We lost our Nevinral's Disc. Probably could have played that at some point to prevent that. Not of this world. It's fine in the graveyard. Does give us 2 card types in case Emrakul dies for some reason. Or if we want to get busy with our Erratic Portal. Although we have the Lightning Greaves still in play, and I believe that's going to make it... I don't believe we'll be able to target our Emrakul with the Erratic Portal. So the Sliver Hivelord opponent gets their turn. They use the land tax ability, get some lands, so they have a ton of lands in play. And they cast their commander. Looks like their only real play. And a Luminarch Ascension. A Luminarch Ascension is a real card. Someone will need to put damage on that opponent so that Luminarch doesn't become active. What to do right here? So I'm not sure if I should Inventor's Fair before or after Emrakul. I mean, maybe something like an Oblivion Stone is also where we want to be, but that would hit a lot of our stuff. Oh, opponent's going to tap down our mana. Okay, we definitely need to wipe the board right here. Being able to tap down permanents is way too strong. So get some mana out of our Grim Monolith in response to the tapping. We're going to use our Inventor's Fair right here. Search our library for an artifact and put it into our hand. What to get? Oblivion Stone seems reasonable. Ton of mana rocks. Force Field is okay. Erratic Portal is nice, but we can't target currently, so we might have to wait on that. Just find another way to get it. Memory Jar might be good because that'll give us a lot of extra cards. That'll give us the ability to draw into some extra stuff. Do we have a Mindslaver in here? We do not have Mindslaver in this deck, so that would be the ideal, but it is not here. I'm going to go with the Memory Jar right here just because we could really use cards. We'll get 6 mana on our main phase to cast the Memory Jar. So the reason I didn't go for Oblivion Stone right there is because after we blow up the board, I think we're going to have the hardest time recovering because we don't have that much mana out in play. We're relying on our artifacts pretty heavily to make the mana. So Oblivion Stone, I think, would hit us worse than it would hit everyone else, which is why I didn't go for it there. I'm going to scry with the Crystal Ball prior to our draw step. So get rid of the land. Temple Bell's good. And the Endrek Sahr opponent has conceded. Game was probably slowing down more than their liking, and they didn't have a lot of stuff really going on, so I understand that. Do we top first or top after the Memory Jar? I'm going to crack the Terramorphic Expanse first. Get a wastes. Play the Memory Jar. Play the Temple Bell. And I'm going to wait on the Memory Jar until our next turn. The question is, do we survive back to our turn? If we go in for the combat damage against the Sliver player, do we survive back to our turn? He could very easily get like a double strike Sliver. I'm going to activate the Temple Bell right here. We draw an Ancient Tomb. Yeah, I think we go in for the damage right here. This may cost us, but the other thing that could happen is that the Sliver Overlord opponent could search up for one of their slivers that destroys all artifacts, or destroys an artifact, such as Harmonic Sliver or Necrotic Sliver. And if they blow up our boots, then they'll just be able to tap down Emrakul, and we wouldn't have got the damage in. So I think I like this better than just trying to sit back and play defense. There's a lot of potential for things to go bad here, though. Oh, nice. The Sliver Hivelord taps down the Sliver Overlord. So that should at least keep us from dying this turn. That's good. That means we can Memory Jar on our next turn, and we're in a position where we kind of want to draw into some of our other Legendary Eldrazi's. So another, yep, there it is. Harmonic Sliver coming into play. Hopefully it doesn't play too many more Slivers, because we have a lot of artifacts. We really don't want those getting blown up. He's got quite a bit of mana, so he could very easily play more. So turn off all auto yields. Searches for a Sliver. Finds a Changeling. Oh, yep. The Changeling gives the opponent the ability to steal any creature. Luckily, our Emrakul's tapped, so that won't be a problem this turn. They do get the Destroy Target Artifact or Enchantment trigger. See where they point that. And that's one of the things with Emrakul, is that having the knowledge of what's in your opponent's hands is very strong. I run Sunglasses of Urza in the deck to be able to look at opponents' hands. So opponent's going to go after Luminarch Ascension. That's good for us. But yeah, not having knowledge of what's in your opponent's hand makes it much more difficult to figure out whose turn you should be stealing. Because I really would have left the Sliver Hivelord player alone had I known that their hand was like mostly lands and nothing super interesting. We really want our Memory Jar and our Blinkmoth Urn to live till our next turn. Those will be the things that do the most for us. Maybe going for Oblivion Stone last turn was the right call. Especially the way the board's shaping up now, I'm not entirely sure this Memory Jar was the right play. If we draw a bunch of lands off of it, we're going to be really hurting. Opponent's combat step? See what they do. Oh, okay. So opponent can use the Provoke ability to untap Emrakul, and then they could steal it. Luckily, they can't steal it and attack with it all in the same turn. That could give them an untapped Emrakul, which would be really bad. So opponent doesn't attack, and I assume that they're setting up for the play that I was just talking about, at least with stealing Emrakul, and then it'll untap on their untap step. So that's going to be tricky to play around. I'm going to take a peek with our top real quick during our opponent's turn. We have 2 Wastes and a Buried Ruin. The Buried Ruin is good. The Wastes I'm not thrilled about. So what I plan to do is draw the Buried Ruin, because that gives us access to Nevinrul's Disc, also access to Lightning Greaves, although opponent could respond to the Lightning Greaves too easily. Nevinrul's Disc is probably the correct answer. Oh boy. A Right of Replication on the Harmonic Sliver, and it's been kicked, so I have a feeling this is going to hit us really hard. Opponent searches for a Sliver. Crystalline Sliver. All slivers have Shroud. Actually, that's interesting. So, if he plays the Crystalline Sliver and turns Emrakul into a oh my god, turns Emrakul into a Sliver, then oh, we're about to get hosed. Well, that should take care of Mirari's Wake, which is good. Mirari's Wake has been really fueling up our opponent. So we're going to lose all of our artifacts. Yeah, Oblivion Stone was definitely the better play last turn. We still have the Buried Ruin, which means we'll need to survive for 2 turns, unless there's a Voltaic Key in our future. Opponent gets 1,000,000 triggers. Wow, that's crazy. I don't know if that's correct. So, all slivers have, when this permanent enters the battlefield, destroy target or artifact or enchantment. So, it's giving duplicate instances of that ability to each creature. I'm not sure if that's correct. I don't know if that ability stacks, or if that should only trigger 1 time while it enters the battlefield. Do we trigger our Memory Jar? If we do, we lose our Buried Ruin. We can put our Divining Top back on top of... Yeah, I think we let the Memory Jar go, and we put the Divining Top back on our deck. Actually, and then we can trigger the Memory Jar, because exiles all cards from her hand. At the beginning of the next end step, each player discards his hand and returns all cards. Yeah, that'll work. So, we'll do this. We will lose our Divining Top. Erratic Portal, Thought Vessel will go to the graveyard. And, ooh. So the Overlord opponent is tapped down, which means that we can just get in for the combat damage to take them out of the game. Nice. That was a really good play from the Sliver Hivelord opponent. Basically taking us out of the game and putting us into a position where we want to attack the other opponent. So we're going in. Hopefully this Emrakul hits. Nice. So Sliver Overlord goes down to Emrakul combat damage.
Now that's what I call a close encounter.
Largely in part to the plays from the Sliver Hivelord opponent. And what that also does, that means that the Harmonic Slivers now only have Indestructible and the Destroy Artifact or Enchantment ability. So they lose the ability to tap things down and do all the stuff that was being granted from the other Slivers in play. So that is huge. We knew that the Sliver Hivelord opponent has mostly lands in their hand. They might have one or two other things by now, but they seem to be drawing pretty dead. I'm going to play the Buried Ruin. Don't know exactly what we need to do yet. The question is, how threatening are these 1/1s? They're indestructible. Well, if they're indestructible, that takes Nevinyrral's Disc off the table. Memory Jar is probably the best thing to bring back with the Buried Ruin. Now, if for some reason he can play another Sliver, that would cancel that plan. But I think we're going to give it a shot. We have to do something right here. So, get Memory Jar. Recast Memory Jar. Hope nothing goes wrong on this turn. Wow, that was... The Sliver Hivelord opponent really set their last turn up really nicely. Oh, boy. Create a token that's a copy of target creature. Oi. So they get an Emrakul. Luckily, they don't get the cast trigger, but potentially they could Cipher and then hit us and then make a second Emrakul. Oh, God. Yeah, I don't like where this is going at all. So Emrakul is not a commander, which is one small saving grace, which means we could take, maybe one extra hit, one or two extra hits than we would have been able to otherwise. Why did... Oh, I see. Well, we're going to have to use our Memory Jar again. Nothing super helpful in that batch of cards. So all those are going to get pitched. We don't really need mana right now so much as we just need Erratic Portal as a way out, Oblivion Stone as a way out. Back to our upkeep. We do have Rogue's Passage in play. That's something. Maybe we just try to Rogue's Passage for the win? Play Eye of Ugin. I think we can survive next. Yeah, I think Rogue's Passage is our best bet here. So make our Emrakul unblockable. We'll play this Everflowing Chalice. Actually, no, we don't have enough for the Everflowing Chalice, so cancel that. Swing in with Emrakul. Can't be blocked. He can hit us with an Emrakul, a bunch of other stuff, but we just need to survive one more turn and do it again. Rogue's Passage. Looking really good right now. Hopefully our opponent's still drawing dead. Opponent goes to combat, swings with everything, puts us down to 10 life, gets a copy off the Cipher ability, gets another Emrakul, probably doesn't realize that it's legendary, gets rid of the legendary copy. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have anything. Once it's in our turn, we should be okay, because Emrakul has protection from instants. Opponent says, looks like we got this. Let's see what their last card is. Telling the opponent that I'm biting my nails on this one. What'd they play? Spitting Image. Makes another copy of Emrakul. Doesn't do that much for him. Again, Emrakul being legendary. So, hopefully nothing goes wrong right here. Well, opponent's tapped out, so this should be it. We draw an Ugin. Play our Ancient Tomb. Target creature can't be blocked. Make Emrakul unblockable. Go to combat, and we get there. Nice. So first off, I'm going to tell the opponent what a great turn they had. That was a really well-played turn, which could have very easily won them the game. If we didn't have Rogue's Passage, we just lose the game right here. There's basically nothing we can do. We swing our Emrakul, they block with Emrakul, and maybe we recast it one time, but other than that, I don't think we would have really had much that we could do. Man, so I have to admit that I played really poorly with that Inventor's Fair. I really should have went for the Oblivion Stone and ended up going for the Memory Jar, and so... One thing to consider when you're tutoring is that Memory Jar would let us draw cards, yes, but being that this deck is colorless and predominantly ramp, that means that the percentage of drawing a high-quality card is very low. If you're playing a color deck, like especially if you're playing black, where you know you can tutor into something, tutor into that specific answer that you need, when you're playing colorless, and particularly colorless ramp, you're really just not likely to draw something that you really need. Both times we cracked Memory Jar, it was basically all ramp cards and lands. So we weren't really going to get a lot of help out of that, and based on the way that this deck is built, that's to be expected because such a large part of the deck is devoted to just ramping into Emrakul that there just isn't a lot of room for really big other things to do in the deck. So I definitely played that wrong. When I cracked the Inventor's Fair, I really should have went for the Oblivion Stone. Yes, that would have blown up a lot of our stuff, but it would have hurt our opponents really badly also. And as it turned out, they cast the Rite of Replication on Harmonic Sliver and just blew up all of our artifacts anyway. So Oblivion Stone would have definitely been the right call right there. And I think the game probably goes a few turns longer, but I think it would have been a much safer route to victory. That particular scenario that we got into, our opponent basically set us up for the kill on the other player, which was very smart play on their part. The only issue is that they didn't really have a lot left. Well, they had answers to Emrakul specifically. They did not have answers to Emrakul with Rogue's Passage that they could handle. Their plan was definitely just to block Emrakul with a copy of Emrakul. And, 9 times out of 10, that's going to be a great plan. But the Rogue's Passage is what really let us sneak our way to victory. So anyway, this has been Emrakul the Promised End. This is another one of those decks that you probably shouldn't build because your friends will hate you. Stealing people's turns is not fun for them. Emrakul does have some saving grace in that the opponent gets to take a turn after the turn that you steal, unlike Mindslaver and Worst Fears, which do not allow that. But this is generally another unfun deck for your opponents to face. And especially if you're playing in the paper world and have a play group that you play with often, they'll probably let you play this deck 1 or 2 times, and then they'll never want to play it again after that. So it would be almost a waste of time to put it together, I think. Unless, of course, your play group is playing super high-powered decks where anything goes, then by all means, have at it. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this Emrakul deck. I hope you enjoyed this video, and of course, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.